Everyone makes plans. Almost nobody follows through on them. And it's not because you're lazy or undisciplined, it's because the way most people make plans is fundamentally broken. In Israeli special operations, a bad plan gets people killed. So we were systematically trained to build plans differently. Plans that account for chaos, for things going wrong, for human psychology working against you. Basically, as Mike Tyson famously said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So today, I'm going to show you the exact frameworks for making a plan that actually works when life inevitably punches you in the mouth. Whether it's for your business, your fitness, your finances, or your life in general. And the reason most plans fail has nothing to do with motivation. My name is Itamar Marani. I'm an ex-Special Forces operative, undercover agent, jiu-jitsu black belt, and the author of Elite Performance. I work with 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs and achieve their highest potential while winning big. If you appreciate me making this content for free, hit the like button below. Let's get into it. Number 1, why most plans fail. Most plans are built for ideal conditions. Clear schedule, high energy, no distractions, basically a version of life that doesn't exist, but would be nice if it did. So the plan looks good on paper because it feels nice. But the moment reality hits, stress, fatigue, uncertainty, or any other variable, the plan collapses because it was never designed to hold under pressure. It was designed to feel good when you wrote it. And that's the first mistake. If your plan only works when everything goes right, it doesn't work. It's not a plan, it's a wish. 2, start with failure points. In most cases, people plan forward. They start with the goal and map out steps to get there. Now, that's not how high-performance planning works. You start by asking, where is this going to break? Not how do I succeed, but where are the potential failure points? Where will I lose consistency? Where will I get distracted? Where will a competitor from an external perspective come and ruin this? Or where will I start negotiating with myself because things are going to get a little bit hard? Because those points are actually predictable. And if you don't design for them, they will take you out and it will be just an unnecessary, unforced error on your part because you didn't plan for them. In my background, we didn't trust plans that looked clean. We trusted plans that had already been broken and rebuilt. We used to have a red team and a blue team. Whenever you came up with a mission as the blue team, somebody as a red team, as your adversary, as your enemy, would try to rip it apart and say, this is how it attack you here, this is how we'd plan a bomb there, and these are all the ways that you haven't noticed that we can ruin your plan. And only after you did that for a while with a couple different people, you could say, you know what, I have confidence in this plan because we've understood all the failure points and mapped them out and we figured out how to get around them. 3, plan for human behavior. Here's something most people ignore. You are not a rational operator. You don't execute based purely on logic. You execute based on your state, on your energy, your emotions, and your environment. We are human beings, and if we ignore that factor, we're just ignoring reality. So when people create plans based on what makes sense, they fail because the plan doesn't account for how they actually behave under pressure, or other people behave under pressure. The most famous incident with this was with Donald Trump, with the assassination attempt, where you know that everybody, that the security that was working for him should have just kept his head low, but they felt a bit of pressure. They were like, oh, he's the high command, we're supposed to not do that, and just let him stand up. And a great photo, very iconic, but not effective work on their end. Because somebody didn't prepare them that if this happens, you might have somebody who's going to resist you taking control of the situation. And you're going to have to overcome that imposter syndrome or the fear of getting fired and actually do your job. So basically, instead of asking what's the optimal plan, whether it's with yourself or with your team, ask what would I actually do when I'm tired, distracted, or stressed, or getting negative feedback from these people? Because that version of you is the one that actually matters. A working plan is not built for your best day. It's actually built for your worst one. 4, reduce decision load. Every decision is a point of failure, and this is especially true under pressure. The more decisions your plan requires, the more likely it is to break. So high-performance planning focuses on removing decision fatigue, not adding options and variability. Basically, you do this by adding preemptive decisions. When you act, what you do if this happens or that happens, how long do you go on for plan B, and then you recognize, oh, we got to go to plan C. The whole point is to not have to need to negotiate with yourself in the moment, because the moment is where discipline is the weakest. In elite environments, we didn't rely on willpower. We relied on clarity and very structured clarity of that. Because clarity a lot of times removes the hesitation. Whether I should do plan B now and wait a little bit more to plan C, or what's the exact cutoff that if this doesn't work, we do that instead. And if you can have that kind of clarity, it will kill hesitation and you'll be able to execute a lot better. 5, build constraint systems. Most people build flexible plans, which is great. They leave room to adjust, to shift, to figure it out. And it sounds smart, but in reality, it can also create loopholes. And your brain will use those loopholes every time. Now, high performers, they don't just rely on flexibility. They don't justify it by adding optionality. They actually rely on constraints. Clear rules, clear limits, clear boundaries that are set ahead of time. Because constraints force reality. It forces us to see reality and take action. They eliminate that negotiation. For example, instead of saying, I'll work on this when I have time, you define exact time, exact duration, exact outcome, and when do we need to do this if that thing doesn't work. There's no ambiguity here, because ambiguity is a lot of times where plans die. 6, stress test the plan. Before you execute a plan, you need to break it on purpose. You need to ask, what if I lose time? What happens if I lose energy? What happens if something unexpected comes up? Because it definitely will. Basically, where does this plan fail? Because again, it will fail at a certain point. And if you haven't identified that in advance, you'll experience it in real time. And again, that's where most people fall off. And it's why in the special ops world, we had that whole red team and blue team emphasis. That you were not allowed to say, I have a plan or we have a mission until you've already done that. And then you kept doing it more and more until it was actually clear that we mitigated all the potential risks that we actually could mitigate it. Because again, reality doesn't care about how good your plan looks. It only cares if it holds. And if you don't test it, you'll never know. 7, execution over perfection. A perfect plan that isn't executed is useless. A flawed plan that is executed consistently with aggression will outperform every time. As General Patton Famous said, an imperfect plan violently executed is better than a perfect plan that doesn't get done. Most people spend too much time refining the plan and not enough time operating it, because planning feels productive and it feels safe, but execution feels uncomfortable. You're actually in the arena, you're messing up. So to avoid that, most people stay in the planning phase, endlessly adjusting, endlessly optimizing, but never moving. At a high level, planning is fast, but execution needs to be the main core of it. It is everything. Yes, you build a plan. Yes, you need to stress test it, but then you have to step into it. And you have to also recognize I'm going to need to adapt in real time. 8, debrief. Most people finish execution and move on, and that's why they stay stuck at a certain level, because they end up repeating the same mistakes just with more effort or little incremental gains because they haven't constantly thought through what happened. In high performance environments, that doesn't happen. After every single operation, after every single little bit of training, there is a hot debrief. Not a casual reflection, not a what do you feel you learned, but a structured breakdown. Again, guys, what was the objective? What actually happened? Where did the plan break? Where did we deviate and why? What was the cause of it? And then, what are all the learnings moving forward? And on top of it, how do we implement them into our SOPs? Now, the great part about Special Forces, how it was taught to us, is that it was never done from a place of personal fault or shame or guilt. There was no ego, no storytelling, no protecting your image. They just detached it from your sense of self and said, what did the operator do wrong here? And you can look at it from a more objective lens. Because if you can't see clearly where you failed, you will repeat it exactly in the same way. And here's the key. Again, debriefing is not about judgment. It's about precision. You are tightening the system, eliminating leaks, closing gaps, removing friction points, not judging yourself. And the more you can do that, and the more you feel detached from it and feel more comfortable to do that, the more you'll actually get things done. And that speed of that loop will determine how fast you improve. Now, most people, because of the emotional discomfort, they wait days, weeks, or just simply don't do these things. But high performers debrief immediately in a bit of a more casual sense, and then debrief formally when they finish the actual thing. Now, high performers debrief immediately. While it's still fresh, while the data is real, then they adjust so the next execution is sharper, cleaner, and more controlled. And then also at a periodic level, whether it's a quarter, after a big run, a big initiative, or whatever it may be, they do a proper debrief that's more controlled and more systematic. And that's how you turn experience into actual progress. Not by just doing more, but by extracting more valuable lessons and improvement from what you've already done. So if your plans haven't been working, it's probably not because you simply lack discipline. It's because your plan wasn't built for reality. You weren't planning for that punch in the mouth, as Tyson said. Most people, again, naturally and idealistically plan for ideal conditions. And then they get frustrated when life doesn't cooperate with those hopes of theirs. But again, high performance planning is different. You build for failure. You account for behavior of human beings. You remove decision fatigue. You stress test everything. And when you do that, your plan doesn't just look good. It actually holds in reality and creates the outcomes you want. Now, if you want to apply this properly, if you want to break down your current plan, identify where it's weak, and rebuild it into something that will actually work and get you results, you're welcome to book a strategy call. We'll go deep on your specific situation in your business and build a plan that's designed for execution, not just intention. Because at the end of the day, a plan only matters if you actually follow it and if it actually works. So again, you're welcome to book a strategy call, and you can find that in the link in the show notes below.